You got it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cancer Book Club. This is December 2018. And today I'm delighted to be talking, along with Pat, to Khevin Barnes, who is the playwright and music writer as well, correct? Behind the play, The Sons of St. Agatha, which is about male breast cancer and cancer generally. And so I wanted to say welcome, Khevin, and thanks for joining us in the busy month of December.
Never too busy to talk with you two. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
So Khevin, give us an overview of this play. This is this is so creative. I'm just amazed at this whole thing.
It's kind of out there, I know. Well, to start with, having male breast cancer was the first reason I got involved. But also when you think of theater, and I've been a Broadway theater fan my whole life. I've seen so many shows, not in New York, but the ones that travel. And being a theater arts major, I've always had a love for musical theater. And if I look back at some of the favorite shows that I've seen, they've all been about kind of wacky things, Hunchbacks, Elephant Men, the show Kinky Boots. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. So the subjects are wild and fun, fairy tales oftentimes. So I thought male breast cancer is just odd enough that it would make a very, very good theme for a show. So that's how that started.
Now, it's a comedy, right?
It's a dark comedy, so it's dealing with a serious subject, but there are definitely some light moments.
Moments for sure, although I don't know if comedy is the word I would use to describe.
I may change that by the time it's done. Well, a dark comedy often has little bits of humor in it, but mostly it's about something serious. Yeah.
So maybe if we unpack the narrative of it, because so it begins. It's cleverly. There's so many clever touches to how it opens. It opens up at this oncology conference with nobody in the audience.
Nobody there, which is reflective of the real world of male breast cancer. There just aren't enough of us to have a conference. It doesn't work.
You're right.
So that in itself was kind of comical, I thought.
So I believe she's Terry. Terry, the surgical oncologist, is standing out at the microphone waiting for guests to arrive, and then
somebody will show up.
And then people arrive
right
into the conference room, and each one has their own story. There's three cancer male breast cancer candidates or people who show up at different levels. One just newly diagnosed. In fact, he's sort of hallucinating the whole thing. Terry keeps saying, "Well, you're actually being operated on right now, and this is all your fantasy. What's happening right now." And then we have a fellow who's sort of like got that warrior.
He wants to kill his cancer.
Yeah. And then we have a stage 4 person who's
actually terminal
with his place in it, and by sort of comically a woman who what is she, sort of like a banjo player or something? She plays accordion or something like really arcane.
So she has lost her place in the world. Being a folk musician with nowhere to play and nobody that understands her music. So I wanted a couple of female characters in the show, first of all, but I wanted to tie in one of the characters with being in the same predicament as these guys, so to speak, sort of lost in the world. And a lot of male breast cancer guys feel that way because there just isn't enough research about it, small numbers, and so that kind of tied it in nicely, I thought.
Yes, and then the idea of being kind of orphaned and so they all are relating to each other, and throughout and occasionally they stop and sing a song. And
occasionally they do. Very often, as a matter of fact, there are 8 songs in the show so far. The fun thing about rewrites, and that's where I'm at now, is that some of the songs will go. I've got a couple that I'm working on that may come in. A lot of dialogue will be changed, and I think this is the part where it really gets interesting, because I do what I do, but there are people out there that can do the rest of it so much better. And I'm talking about musical arrangers and writers, really, who will actually look at this and tighten it up a little bit, make it more interesting. There isn't a single major Broadway show that has ever not been rewritten after an audience has seen it. Sometimes entire acts have been thrown out. Very famous shows. So rewriting is a big part of it. So
But putting together a production like this is very complicated, isn't it?
it is, and it's a big dream, and for a guy who's relatively unknown, actually totally unknown, I need people to help me with it. But I think the show will stand up to the test. I think it really is a good program. A couple other things I'll tell you. One of the difficulty I had when I wrote this was, first of all, I knew I couldn't come up with a way to get 10 male breast cancer guys in a room. It wouldn't happen, and so the audience wouldn't believe that. So I created this convention where only 3 show up, and it kind of works that way because they don't know how many of them do it. And then secondly, it's only a 5-person show because I really designed this to be a touring program. And the more people you have, the more expensive it gets. You know, just to get this thing out and running will probably take a minimum of $500,000 from somebody somewhere. But once it gets touring, it'll pay for itself. It'll cover itself.
Is part of the
larger the cast, the more money is involved. So that's why a 5-person cast is important.
Is part of the goal for this educational, so that as this tours, more and more people can become aware of the fact that this can be genetically inherited. People really do need to be tested, and people need to be much more aware. Men need to be much more aware of what the symptoms are in terms of male breast cancer.
Yeah, Pat, you hit the nail on the head. It really is designed to be educational and entertaining, of course, so that people will come to see it. But another interesting thing about this is I wanted one of the characters to actually go through male breast cancer surgery. So the way I came up to do that was to put this in a dream sequence. So the star of the show, Spencer, is actually having a mastectomy done to him while he's at this convention, and we're with him in his dream. So you have to be careful with dream sequences because they don't always work. But this way it allowed me to actually have the audience walk through him as he's going through this. And 3 of the songs are actually taken out of the transcript of my own breast cancer surgery. So we're hearing exactly how it happened when it's happening. So I thought that was kind of fun. At least be interesting. I don't know if it's fun or not. But it brings the audience to the real experience of having a mastectomy.
I want to kind of go say that in my view, that the play is actually more existential, even it's not so much educational. So people, yes, it is educational and all that's great, but I think it works at a whole other level, way past that. I think anybody who's mortal, which is all of us, will respond to this play. And I thought, in my personal view, I thought that you really nailed it. But when you say, "Oh, I'm going to take out dialogue," don't.
well, you know, tighten it up.
Yeah, you'll tighten it up, and it'll be, you know, touched in places. But I thought it went really well and really deep into, and it didn't pull punches at all about the aspect. And I thought, and there were parts of it I thought were just perfect. Like, I like the one thing that really struck with me, and I've even used it in conversation and analogy with other cancer patients and in talking since, this whole idea is that once this happens, there's never, ever, ever going back. You can never be the person you were when you were living carefree before that you have cancer moment, and all after is the rest. And so no matter how that ends, it will always be different from the beginning. And that whole, it changes you utterly thing. The way people say, for example, if they've had their children die or whatever, they are never, ever, ever okay ever again. And that, but I also want to kind of enlarge too on what I found to be the most important part of the whole thing that really, really got me was the terminal guy. And the terminal guy talking about, you know, he was in someone said, so the wise old man in this play. So the others, the warriors, like yelling and screaming and no, I'm fighting to the nth degree, and the other guy sort of bewildered and frightened, but the older experienced hand, if you like, is sort of saying, well, he's sort of talking about coming to peace with having an incurable disease, which I have and Pat has, and so it's sort of, for me, maybe it was because of my own personal resonance with that, but I just thought I thought that whole analysis was wonderful and touching. I actually cried when I read it because, and I tell you, I read a ton of cancer-related materials. Pat knows this. I've read dozens and dozens and dozens of self-published books on cancer. I've written one of my own. I've done all that, you know, so I totally understand how hard it is to transform into a work of art.
I'll let you in on the secret. I actually cried when I wrote it. So there you
Yeah.
go.
Oh,
I love that character, Virgil. He's the old cantankerous guy.
Yeah.
He has a real acerbic wit, and he doesn't take any guff. Without giving a lot away, he is terminal, and he has an opportunity to actually take his own life at one point. So we discuss some very serious issues.
Yes.
But I love writing him. I mean, he's the one that I think I relate to the most. He's a wild guy.
Yeah, no, I just thought he seemed very, I don't know. I just, all I can say is that I was very, very strongly and emotionally to the play and to that character in particular, but to all of it. I could totally, every aspect of it, even Virgil in the act of counseling the newly diagnosed person is someone I could relate to. I could relate to the warrior person who was like, under no circumstances am I going to let this take me when you're pushing off control of that.
Yeah. Well, and I know people like this. So this is based on real emotions that many of them I've had myself, but a lot of them I know from all of the guys in the Male Breast Cancer Coalition.
Absolutely. And I thought, what I loved about it too is that it seemed to me to reflect what the struggle that would be for men in particular. Like, as you say, this isn't part of the body that men talk about or have a lot to do with. And so, they're, in some ways, the guys were describing as, do I have like the sissy kind of cancer? And what is it mean about my masculinity, my body image, and in a way, the male-centered issues I found eye-opening and very real and realistic to me as even as a female responder or reader. I just thought, yeah, it's another window onto what we go through when we have the cancers that are rare or that are not discussed.
Khevin, for somebody who hasn't read this, what are some of the male issues that come up?
Well, they each have different stages and grades of their breast cancer, so it's different for all of them. Typically, one reaction is to do everything you can to kill this cancer. The cancer is the enemy, and we're going to take every chemo we can do and fight until we kill it. My own approach, I didn't do chemotherapy, I based on a number of reasons. My first wife died of cancer, and I watched a very long process, her going through chemo. And I made my choice long before I had cancer that I would not do it if I had the opportunity. So that's a whole nother side. I don't push that on anybody. That's my own case. But, so we have these two different spectrums. You can fight it and kill it. But to me, cancer is part of my body. I made it in my body. I don't want it there, but it's not a foreign. I'm a conscientious objector. I'm not battling with it. So I think it's a whole difference in just how you approach it that way. And I wanted to get all of those different ideas in from the guys because there's so many ways that you can approach, getting rid of cancer. We're living with cancer, however you choose.
I had a question. I wanted to back up a little bit on something you said earlier, that this is really a very existential kind of play. And obviously mortality is one of the big themes. What are some of the other big themes?
Other big things are chemotherapy. They do a lot of talking about complementary therapies because they're available. Well, help me out, Robin. What's something else that stuck with you?
Well, I guess I saw themes having to do with, as we say, sort of being lost in a lost world, kind of.
Yeah.
Coming to terms with being dislocated, I also really loved it because with the dream sequence, there's this element of unreality, which I think a lot of people have all the time anyway.
Yes.
Cancer diagnosis. Yeah. Is this actually real? Is this really happening? No, it isn't really happening. Yes, it is really happening. And that whole ambiguity surrounding Spencer's experience, I just thought, well, that's just a it's a meta analogy for what's happening all the time to everyone who's undergoing cancer. And I also thought that, the whole theme about making a choice about one's response to it, but also having to really respect it as a genuine, serious enemy. You can't deny it and go, nah, there's nothing to that, I'll just go on. You can't, that is not an option, really.
No, we can't just write it off and pretend it's not there.
That's right. So the guy who takes it as, I'm going to go to war, you know, I think I can't remember if he had been a soldier in his previous life, but he certainly came across as
Must have been.
that, and was not able to sort of shift or bend or whatever around that. And the weaknesses of that perspective, I thought, were touched on, but also the importance of it for certain people, not just men, but certain people. The warrior motif is one that they just have to have. And I've known people to have that motif right up until their last day.
Oh, I'm sure.
So,
you know, the other element, Pat, in there is the big unknown, the fact that we don't know what's going to happen next. And Spencer, who really is the star of the show, that we're not talking about much because he's kind of the guy that's gliding through this whole thing and watching it. He doesn't know what his cancer is until the end of the program. He's undergoing.
That's right. He doesn't even know a grade or stage because they're just.
He knows nothing. So he's listening to all these arguments, which are scaring him to death, by the way.
Yeah.
And so he's representing that character that we all are at one point until we get our diagnosis. So I wanted that element to be in there too.
Yeah, and I thought that was excellent because it's the uncertainty, especially the initial, well, uncertainty at any point in the journey, but particularly at the beginning when they say, well, we need to know more and we'll tell you in 6 weeks what's really happening.
Plus, when you're hearing all these opinions from other people, what they're going to do. I'm going to kill this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take it. So you hear all this stuff, and you have so many choices you have to make based on so little information. So that's the part Spencer plays.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you've taken a relatively rare and unknown cancer that is not getting much attention, and there are so many cancers like this. And one of the things that I love is that whatever type of cancer you have, we're all going through so many of the same emotional things, so many of the same conversations. And while they're specific to that cancer, they're not unique to cancer.
That's right.
And I think taking something like male breast cancer is just brilliant. I really do.
Well, and that's why I added that third or fourth female character who wanders in. She thinks she's going to a rock concert, and she gets there and it's a full concert, and she's in tears, and she wanders into this room, and basically she's been rejected. She's lost. Everything that she's ever done in her life doesn't have any meaning because nobody wants to hear it or see it. So the dynamic between her, I think, and Spencer and some of the others shows that it's not just cancer that can make us feel this way. Anything in our lives that doesn't fit can also, make us feel out of sort, out of place. So that's why she bonds so well with the guys. I think she's one of them. Just has a different disease. Kind of.
But and I was trying to, in my mind, think now, if I was just an ordinary healthy audience member who had no cancer and no issues, how would I respond to a play about those issues? And I like to think that anyone at any health status would leave that auditorium, the lights would come on and they'd be thinking, what the hell am I doing with my life? I only have so much time left. No matter what, no matter how healthy I am, how great I am.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that we're mortal. We are all mortal, and we have to really process that, whether we have to do it right in your face the way cancer do, or way down the road. At some level, you have to are accountable for the life that you have, the one life.
I didn't want to write this as being just for the men because I want women to come. I want their wives, their sisters, their mothers, women with breast cancer, and women without it just to come and see the show too. So that's why I thought that the female parts were so important to add in. It should work for everybody, I hope.
Now, do you you don't sing by trade, do you, or do you?
Well, you know what? Not really. I do a lot of singing, Pat, but it's because I can never afford to go to the studio. My opening song, which I know that Robin heard, which is a real involved tune, there's about 15 voices, and they're all mine. They just all overlap in each other. But I was able to do a crowdfunding and bring in 3 really good singers to do about 2/3 of the song for me. And that was really fun because in the past I've just done them all myself.
Is there anything you'd like to play for us here? Do you have it handy?
I can do it. How do I do it on the computer here?
Just play it. I think we'll be able to pick it up on the audio.
Let's see. I have to exit full screen. Is that what I do?
No, I don't.
If it's going to disrupt our interview, we could maybe save it for the end.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to do it. But the links are all there online, all 18 songs.
Okay.
read the script and hit a button.
And that brings me to another aspect or topic about this, is that your work of art integrates music with the narrative. And the reason I guess I respond very strongly to music and music's gives a whole other emotional ambiance to anything, and into this topic very much so. So I guess I just found that it was a lovely marriage of things that really excite the emotions in a pleasurable way, and also in a thought-provoking way, and also in all kinds of ways, because that's some people say musical theaters and opera and all that are some of the highest forms of art, because it's music with the.
I feel that way. I've always thought of myself as a musician before being a writer. I've been writing music forever, and show tunes that tell the story are just my favorite thing. You know, so if I look at this script, I believe when I timed it, there's about an hour and 20 minutes of music, but it's all dialogue. It's all propelling the story forward, and that's what I love about it. You know, you're not just hearing the song. The songs are essential to the storyline.
Right, and the songs come along, and they have thematic topics, or topics that are they're not just excuses for showing off the talents of the singer on stage. They are about the dilemmas faced by the characters as they process this challenge or that challenge. I felt that it really.
What are the next steps in terms of moving this forward?
Well, I'm looking for funding now, and also I'll get it out to a couple of competitions. That's a long shot, really, but funding. I need to get it out to some of the people that might be able to help a little bit. One of my thoughts was to have a local theater group actually put it together on stage, just to do a video of it, not to show it to an audience, which would be much less expensive, but would allow me to then sell the show a little better for some sponsors, I think. So that's one thought. And if that doesn't work, it's going to be a one-man show, and I'm going to travel across the nation and do it. I'll do all 5 parts.
I think, as Robin was saying, you have a really powerful genre of music plus acting, to really get some very powerful points across. I have to believe that there are some companies out there that would be interested in backing something like that.
I believe it. I totally believe it. I just spent 18 months writing it. I'll spend the next 18 months selling it. When I say sell, I'm basically done. I'm not going to be in the show. I don't expect to get ticket sales from it. So I just need the good people now to take it over and do it properly.
This is exciting. The process of creating this is a story unto itself.
Now, I had a friend who wrote an opera, and he ended up in the end having to surrender it to a high school, and the high school made a production of it. Now, the problem, of course, is that the principals were too young to
right.
to pull it off with the panache that it really deserved.
Right.
But there's many ways to skin a cat. So.
Well, yeah. Well, similarly, this is my second full-length musical that I've written. Before I moved to Hawaii, where I was diagnosed with cancer, I wrote a full-length musical called Glorious Losers, and it was about 5 elderly people that are in a television show vying for a prize. It's all the elements that happen in between these people in the green room while they're waiting to go out, discussing why we compete, what's the point of competing in the world. And it was a good show, and it was done twice by seniors in California, and then put away. So I worked a year and a half on that, and it was done. Nowhere to go with it. So this one, I want to make sure I follow it through to the end, because it's a lot of work, but I think it's worthy of being shown and being seen.
I think it's an incredibly worthy story and journey. If you could leave people with just a few words and why they absolutely have to see this, what would you say?
So I would say that not just cancer, but the feelings that we get from any illness, and particularly knowing somebody, or if we have a life-threatening illness ourselves, we can all relate to this set of feelings. And we actually can feel like a community, and not so far apart when we relate in a story like this. It's a common story. It's a human story. And it's all about the fear, unknown, and what do you want to leave behind? What's your legacy? How much time do you have to decide want to wake up tomorrow, how are you going to feel? What are you going to do with your day, knowing that you have limited time left, whether you're sick or not? So I think there's something for everybody in terms of just looking at life and planning for that the final curtain, because it's coming. It's coming.
Thank you. This, I'm so excited about this play of yours, and I just can't thank you enough for taking some time to be with us today. Robin, do we have anything to wrap up with today, or are we a little?
I guess I just want to really thank you for your work. We do a lot of material here at Cancer Book Club, and and you're really stood out to me as the best pieces of art I've consumed all year.
My breath, Kathy. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, and I don't know what it was. Maybe it was I was having a day or something, but it just really got to me, really spoke to me, and really I just reached me, and I'm hard to reach sometimes because I can be so you know, move around the material, but not that day. The day I read your stuff and listened to that stuff, I was very moved and very impressed.
I'm honored. And one thing I want to just finish with, if I can, is after my diagnosis of 2014, first thing I wrote was "What Good's the Breast," the song that's in the show. But the second thing I did was I started looking for people that I could talk to. Got online and I found this funny place called the Anti-Cancer Club. And the day I called, that was my home. And I tell you, the first year I got to write stories for Pat and to put these in. And I love them to pieces. It's a wonderful website. It helps so many people.
It does.
I look at it all the time.
Thank you. That's very kind. Remember to look at Cancer Road Trip.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I do as well. Well,
I keep telling Pat I'm living vicariously through her because she posts these incredible pictures, incredible food, and all these things that are on Cancer Road Trip. You stop.
And she's close enough now that we'll probably see her before too long.
Yeah, we'll get together for sure.